What on earth? Punishing a Kuroge.
我仍未逃脱自己的厄运。机械赤潮。
What I wouldn't do for some subtitles.
回来了。安伯利亚是手里人所背负的罪。
机械赤潮的源头位置已经标记出来了，不在它，剩下的
Am I the only one getting Gundam vibes?
就一定要阻止我们吗？我在跑！
我不会希望你去理解或者原谅什么，我要做的也只有不断前行。安伯利亚。
I'm a sucker for musical scores that have a chorus in the background. It's very Final Fantasy, NieR Automata.
元首敌人罗塞塔将成为你的助力，我将成为进攻的矛尖。贯穿吧！现在这副姿态是为了守护而存在的。我们终将踏破一切障碍。
I like the trancey music in the background. It's very 2000s. Obviously, I can't read any of this, but the music I like. This reminds me of Final Fantasy 13. I don't know if you guys have played it.
邀请我砍了你。
There's just guns and swords and body parts. Okay, this I'm gonna ask, what's going on here? What is this? What is this?
It... 我在想，或许能从你身上分得些什么，比如说，得以前行的力量。
I don't know if she's an android or just like cyborg to a certain extent.
那是以光壁隔绝的一切城市，这里就是决定世界去向的地方。
I'm a sucker for katanas.
这里正是联合共同体9人。
What's going on here? Is this multiplayer? This feels like a multiplayer trailer.
你才是露西亚。
Nani? Okay, that wasn't my PC. I always assume my computer fucks up when something like this happens. Okay, where's the NieR crossover? That's what I want to know.
指挥官，我是因你而诞生的露西亚。正因为那天握住了你的手，我才真正降生于这个世界
I
之上。
swear I've seen some of these characters
开始接触
somewhere.
这
I
个世
must
界
be
的一
wrong.
切。
But it's so anime-esque.
我不会让你上当，指挥官。
不过是个构造体，别想拦我的路。
我可不会放你过去。
It's amazing how games like this have exploded in popularity in recent years.
一直都会在指挥官在的地方。有非常重要称呼的那个人，他的名字是什么？ 我一定会熟练使用这台机体的。后背的喷射器十分难操控，换成翅膀的话会好一些吗？
Yes! This is the type of music I like to listen to. I want the soundtrack now. Okay, what? Now there's chess? Hang the fuck on. What the fuck? Who went out of their way to stack all the chairs? Like, why would you? I don't know. People are weird. I guess we're just listening to music. Show me the collab.
就很激动了。接下来就是一个非常激动的环节了，就是大家期待很久，我们在
半年前
I always find it interesting when I don't understand the language. I'm paying attention to the body language and seeing how people are looking at each other and trying to figure out what they're talking about. Finally! Okay, okay, here we go. I know that logo. I know that logo. Okay, they just changed the topic to NieR Automata. That's when you know it's gonna be good. Alright, gimme. What is it? Gimme, gimme, gimme.
放一个播一个尼尔相关的视频，对，给大家看一看，好吧？那我们先放视频。
Finally!
导播，
完了，导播内鬼。
Was that it?
导播能不能放个正确的视
Give
频？
me.
这个导播花钱了吗？
No, don't blue ball me now.
那个导播刚那段大家当没事情发生过，忘了。
I think they played the wrong video. That's the vibe I'm getting from what they're saying. It's like, stop the video, play the right one.
导播，可以吧？
That's what it looks like.
OK，
Yeah, I hear people in the
我们进一
background.
段尼尔视频，好吧？好。
Yeah, they played the wrong video. I could tell. Just look at the art style. They just blended them in. They just fit right in. Is that it?
来了
OK
来，这里让我来仔细讲讲啊。首先，这一个视频它有2个关键的信息。第一个，我们这一次尼尔联动会出3个机械体。
Damn it! This is where I need subtitles.
对
I need
为什么会出
context.
3个呢？这个其实要
See, this is what gets me. NieR Automata being my first NieR game after I've watched through Drakengard. I get what's happening in the story. And I know NieR Replicant is coming out, which is a remake. I shouldn't say remake, it's more like a Final Fantasy VII remake style of NieR Replicant. So it has the original game plus extra, which wasn't included, and more storyline. But then I also know at the same time that NieR has a dungeon or raid in Final Fantasy 15, which is technically canon to the NieR Automata universe. So when things like this start happening, it makes me automatically question whether or not the crossovers are canon. Because as we know in the NieR timeline, in Drakengard 2, there was E route, which was a joke route, right? It was supposed to be a joke. That ended up branching into what we know as NieR Replicant, the sequel of which is NieR Automata. So that entire timeline is in that direction. Then when NieR Automata finishes, we get the ending that we get. And then from my understanding, what's happening in Final Fantasy 15 is actually canon, because it's 9S. I don't know in which point in time it is, because there are apparently other Yoha units involved. So it might be prior to the events of NieR Automata. Then you've got other crossovers happening like this one. Now, being NieR Automata is in a post-apocalyptic world where robots are trying to kill humans and androids, it's not far-fetched to assume that it could be canon. Because the area in which we play NieR Automata is like, I'd say a continent. Even less so than a continent, but let's just say a huge island. There's still the rest of the planet that's unexplored. So it's not far-fetched to say that these crossovers could technically, in a NieR universe, be considered canon. I don't know. Especially without subtitles. I don't know jack shit. But at the same time, there's so many alternate timelines within the Drakengard world, one of which is, of course, NieR, that any of this could be considered canon, even if it branches off in different storylines. Because we know how the routes play, right? It's got ending A, ending B, ending C, ending D, ending E. And then you've got Drakengard 1, Drakengard 2, and then you have the endings for Drakengard 3. You know, they're all the timelines. And then you've got the Watchers, which are watching the timelines, so, you know, it's all there. Okay, so I did a little bit of digging, and by digging, I quite literally mean right-click translate of what I could find. So this game is called Punishing. This game. It's a NieR Automata collaboration / crossover. It's very possible that it could be canon. Very possible. And apparently it's a mobile game. So all these games are on mobile. Now, this kind of... For me, it's kind of interesting. I mentioned it before. These games actually exploded in popularity. I know every time I was over in Japan, you would see people playing mobile games all the time. Literally, on the train, anywhere. They're all playing games on their mobiles. I was fascinated by it. Here in the West, it's not so much. We know what happened with Activision Blizzard when they wanted to release the new Diablo game on mobile, and everyone just lost their shit. And then one of the people in Activision Blizzard said, well, mobile is the future. If you want to play it, why not just buy a mobile? That didn't sit too well with Western audiences. However, whatever time I spent in Asia, for me, mainly Japan, everyone was playing on mobile. I have a couple of friends from Asia. Even when I'm with them, they're kind of always playing games on their mobile. Even when I was at my mate's Bucks party, one of his mates, who I believe is from Korea, he was playing on his mobile. What really, I was like, WTF, was he was playing the League of Legends game on his mobile while we were sitting there. I'm like, hang on, that's a computer game. It's like, oh no, it's got a mobile version. So these mobile games are going nuts. And then we've got games like Genshin Impact, which just absolutely freaking blew up. Even I know somewhat what that is, even though I typically don't play games like this. And then when they start doing crossovers like this with major brands and major game franchises like NieR, it just explodes, which I think is really good. Because we know that NieR Automata was the first NieR game to actually break outside of Japan and Asia. Because up until then, Drakengard never really made it to the West. I mean, it made it to the West, but it didn't make it all the way. It got into the Western market, but it didn't really get that following that it needed to sort of get the funding approval for more ambitious projects. And so the resources that were given to the game weren't as much as would be required to make it what it really needed to be. NieR Replicant, from what I understand, which was the PlayStation 3 game, and NieR, it did a good job. It was popular, but the title before that, Drakengard 3, had major FPS issues, which were due to the development cycle. Now, we know from PlayStation 3, you can get a game with smooth FPS, with beautiful graphics and good gameplay. I'm comparing it to MGS4 at this point, right? So we know that the PlayStation 3 hardware could definitely handle it. Unfortunately, it didn't get popular enough to get that funding it needed to be developed, 100%. And we all know NieR Automata, even Yoko Taro was shocked, that it got approval and then it had the same development team that developed Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. Now, I played that for the first time a couple of weeks ago, and we saw how beautiful and how slick the combat system was, but you could actually see that it was very NieR Automata. That being said, it's basically like the predecessor to NieR Automata, because, Kojima is an ass man, and 2B's ass kind of carried that game forward and made it what it is in the West. So they went from PlayStation 3 to PlayStation 4. In PlayStation 3, you had Rising. In PlayStation 4, you had NieR Automata, which, really pushed the polygon triangles to the max with 2B's ass. Now you've got mobile devices, like fucking... These little shits, when you look at the specs of these things... this is my sort of old phone, and by old I mean like 2 years old, which isn't old, but it is old. When you take a look at the specs of these things, this little mobile device probably has better specs than the computer I had like 8 years ago. So this little piece of crap has better specs than a massive computer I had 8 years ago. So it's not surprising that games are being played on this and they're able to run actual action games. Not even turn-based games anymore, actual action games. The only thing I don't understand is how people play with the touchscreen buttons, but like, I'm sure you adapt to it. I mean, we played with joysticks, we play with mouse and keyboard and everything, so it's definitely possible. But it's just absolutely fascinating how it's gone mainstream. Well, it's been mainstream in Asia for a while, but it's going mainstream now in the West as well, with mobile gaming. I personally will always prefer console and PC because I like to sit down when I'm playing. I like to isolate myself from the rest of the world, which is why probably streaming and YouTube works so well for me, because I sit here, I put on, my headset, I don't hear what's happening outside, and I focus myself entirely playing on a giant screen. But I completely understand when you're going to work, or you're on public transport, or you're in the middle of nowhere and you can't actually lug around your computer, you can't exactly lug around your Nintendo Switch, or in my old case, the PSP or Game Boy Advance, that having games on your phone is really good. And from a portable sense, it is. People are going to buy a phone anyway, and if they get a semi-decent phone and they can play games on it as well, sure, why not? Power to you. I'm curious to see what happens in the West, and I'm actually very curious to see what this means to many of the franchises that have yet to make it to the West. Because as we know with NieR Automata, of which I'm a huge fan now, and I really want to play the NieR game on release, and will, a lot of these franchises are out there that we in the West haven't got access to because they never broke out. Now with increased popularity and crossovers and collabs, they might actually get the push that they need to get that development cycle. And it's really easy for studios now to localize the games because it's a lot more mainstream to localize games. Of course, you've got like the fan subs and fan dubs and fan localizations, which have always existed, because back in the day when you couldn't even play a game like Danganronpa, you had fans that actually translated the game for you. There were several channels out there of people that were bilingual, that could speak, read Japanese, and speak, read, write English, that would actually translate the game, like literally text line by text line. And people that are dedicated enough would definitely go through that process. And people that are really into a story would actually read, and people read fan subs, people watch fan dubs, games are no different. But now it's become a lot more mainstream to translate. And it's a lot easier to translate too, because you've got, I think Google has its own engine, which actually converts voice to text, and then you've got Google Translate, which is actually built into that, and it would automatically translate. And these systems are actually pretty good nowadays. So you could actually convert audio to text, then automatically translate the text in like next to no time because, Google. So translating has become so much easier. I don't know. I'm curious how this goes. I'm always a sucker for getting content for any franchise that I like, and it's kind of nice to see NieR growing in popularity. I'm honestly shocked. I've said it once, I've said it again. Huge fan of NieR. My first exposure to NieR was when I went to the anime convention here in Sydney, and Yoko Taro was actually visiting. I didn't know who Yoko Taro was at the time, but he actually visited. He was the special guest at the fan convention. And I was there, and it was this giant place. It was like, it is the equivalent, it wasn't an exhibition center, but it was probably like a square kilometer of space. 3 separate buildings, courtyards, everything. It was like a huge function center next to a race course, believe it or not. They ended up hiring out the entire place. So you can imagine this entire kilometer square place with thousands of people visiting. It was spread over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. And I've been to like 2 of those before that. And, you know, everyone's cosplaying different characters and whatnot. This particular year, it was all NieR. Literally, there were probably like 500 people cosplaying 2B, and another 500 cosplaying A2, and another 500, you know, cosplaying 9S. And you can imagine me, that's had no exposure to this game, expecting, yeah, people are going to be cosplaying, cool. But then I'm seeing the fucking same characters everywhere, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And then when I go to like the main hall, there was this guy wearing this giant white gray hat, and the line was like 1,000 people all wearing black uniforms with long ass swords. And I'm like, what the fuck? It looks like a cult. I didn't realize at the time that was actually Yoko Taro wearing Emil's helmet. Anyway, so that was my first experience of NieR Automata. I was like, what the fuck is this? And then the next time I was in the game store, obviously I saw the NieR Automata title for PlayStation, and I like looked at it, and I like looked on the other side of it, and I didn't end up buying it because I was like, it's one of those anime games. This is probably one of those hentai games. Because you take one look at 2B and you're like, look, we know where it's going, right? Anyways, so to make a long story short, we ended up getting a PlayStation 4 because, you know, people donated because they really wanted to see us play PlayStation 4 games. They really wanted to see us playing The Last of Us, but at the same time, they really wanted to see NieR Automata as well. So I was like, yeah, cool. I'll be honest, I haven't really played these games. I'm open to playing just about anything, but if you guys want me to play them, well, we need a console. So I tell you what, if we can get enough money donated to buy the console, we'll get the games. To make a long story short, we ended up getting the console. So we ended up playing The Last of Us, and then we ended up playing NieR Automata. I ended up loving NieR Automata to the point that I was like, shit, Yoko Taro was in Sydney. Fuck, I missed the chance to, you know, say hi to him. And so I ended up actually fucking tweeting him. And I tweeted Yoko Taro. I can actually track down the tweet. I'm like, hey, just finished NieR Automata. I think this was when it was when I started playing C Route. I was like, hey, I just started playing NieR Automata, just did C Route. Oh my effing god. By the way, I saw you in Sydney. I didn't realize who you were. Next time, I'll definitely say hi. He ended up following me on Twitter after that. I was like, wait, what? So, I was like, shit, he actually reads his tweets. Really cool guy. Okay, that kind of went on the tangent, but I'm just sort of sharing my experience with it, which is why I'm so interested in things like NieR, because it did blow up in that sense, but I really want to see it keep going, because I can see the amount of potential in the storyline and the world that was created, especially with Drakengard, that didn't actually blossom, and I'm probably making a fucking Drakengard 3 joke at this point, but it didn't actually blossom to its full potential. It has so much potential, but it didn't have the nutrients and the water and the sunlight required to grow to its full potential. Now that it's finally broken into the mainstream, I'm hopeful that it can get there. NieR Automata was a fucking success, which has opened the gateway to make NieR Replicant. I'm very hopeful that it becomes one of the biggest titles when it's released, so that it brings more people into the franchise. Crossovers like this only make that more possible because more people are exposed to the franchise, which means they're going to start getting interested into it, they start playing it, sales go up. When sales go up, studios greenlight bigger and more ambitious projects, which means we get more story. Is that going to be a sequel to NieR Automata? Highly unlikely. From what I've seen from Yoko Taro's interviews and from what he said, mind you, I don't speak Japanese, so I'm using the Google Translate here. He's not actually thinking of continuing the NieR Automata storyline. He's thinking of probably going back to one of the other routes in Drakengard. You know, as we know, Route E joke in Drakengard 2 equals NieR, NieR equals NieR Automata. It was supposed to be a joke timeline, but it turned out to be an awesome freaking timeline. Who would have thought? It's a bit like the story of Final Fantasy, right? The company was about to go under, and so they produced Final Fantasy, which was, you know, the final fantasy of creating a franchise, which is what it is. and then it ended up exploding, and Final Fantasy is today what it is. It's similar to the story of Hideo Kojima when he created Metal Gear, right? That was an ambitious project which he never thought was going to succeed at the time, and that was his last-ditch effort, you know, to see what happened. What ended up happening on the NES, it became popular to the point that the US released their own Metal Gear 2, which was not produced by Hideo Kojima, which forced him to produce Metal Gear 2. And then he ended up producing Metal Gear Solid, and let's face it, got Game of the Century, highest sales in 1998, 1999, one of the most highly sought titles on PlayStation 1, and look at where we are now. The rest is history. You end up getting Death Stranding and Sony literally throwing money at him because the man shit's gold. I mean, it's fucking amazing how these things work, and NieR has literally got the possibility to become one of those franchises and one of those brands. I do know they registered the copyright and the patent for NieR as a franchise, and I believe also Drakengard. So, and this was before NieR Replicant was actually announced. So these projects are going to start happening more and more frequently. I'm really curious to see where they go. Okay, sorry for ranting. I just wanted to share a little bit of a story on the side as a bonus, because I always do. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I know this is something a little bit left field, but when you're someone like me and you're browsing and following a lot of this news, the search engine and the stuff starts recommending this stuff to you. So this ended up getting recommended. I ended up finding it, which was an interesting find. I was kind of hoping it would give me more information, or at the very least give me some subtitles. Unfortunately, that's not the case, but you could see how deep I've been digging on the internet to get more information. You know you're into something where you have to use Google Translate to understand what's going on in articles. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope to see you at the live streams on the weekends on Twitch. Link is in the description below. We hang out on Discord during the week when we're not live streaming, so you can join that one. The link is also below. And we've also got the reaction channel and Patreon if you're going for some reactions. So yeah, looking forward to live streaming NieR Replicant when it comes out. Otherwise, enjoy the daily gaming videos till then. Hope to see you there. NicoB out. Bye.